The discovery. Commander Zafira Voss had served the Valonian Empire for over 2 centuries, and in all that time, she had never seen her sensor operators look quite so confused. The monitoring station orbiting the dead world of Kepler 438 was supposed to be a quiet assignment, watching the empty space between the Empire's territory and the unexplored regions beyond. Today, that empty space was anything but quiet. "Commander, you need to see this," called sensor technician Lyra, her violet skin pale with worry. "We're detecting a massive energy signature approaching from the outer rim. Multiple contacts, but the readings don't make sense." Zafira moved to the main display console, her 4 arms working efficiently across the control panels. What she saw made her freeze. The holographic display showed dozens of contacts, each one larger than anything in the Empire's database. The formation stretched across several light years, moving with purpose toward Valonian space. "Run a full spectrum analysis," Zafira ordered, her voice steady despite the growing concern in her chest. "Cross-reference with all known ship designs in the galactic database." The computer hummed for several long minutes before delivering its verdict. No matches found. Unknown origin. Unknown technology. Dr. Kethron, the station's xenobiologist, hurried into the command center, his research robes flowing behind him. He had been studying the lesser species of the galaxy for decades, cataloging their slow progress and primitive technologies. "Commander, what's the situation?" "Unknown fleet, massive size, heading directly for our border systems," Zafira replied grimly. "Could this be the work of one of the species you've been monitoring?" Vron pulled up his files on the holographic display. "Impossible. The Zelati barely have fusion drives. The Morphic Collective is still using chemical rockets. And the humans?" He paused, scrolling through data. "The humans are confined to maybe 6 star systems. Last report showed they had perhaps 30 ships total, mostly cargo haulers and research vessels." As if summoned by his words, a new contact appeared on the sensors. This one was different from the others, smaller but clearly more advanced. It was broadcasting on standard galactic frequencies. "Unknown monitoring station. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Terran Expansion Fleet. We are requesting passage through this sector for peaceful colonization purposes. Please respond." The command center fell silent. Terran meant human, but the ship addressing them was unlike anything in their files on human technology. Where their intelligence suggested crude fusion rockets, the sensor readings showed sophisticated propulsion systems. Where they expected primitive communications, they heard clear, confident transmission in perfect galactic standard. "Open a channel," Zafira commanded. "Captain Rice, this is Commander Zafira Voss of the Valonian Empire. Your fleet is larger than our records indicate. Please explain your intentions." The response came quickly, with a hint of amusement in the human's voice. "Commander, I think your records might be a bit outdated. We're not here to cause trouble. We're simply looking for suitable worlds to establish new colonies. The galaxy's a big place, and humanity has grown quite a bit in recent years." Dr. Vron frantically searched through his databases. According to the most recent intelligence reports, humanity had a population of maybe 2 billion, spread across a handful of worlds. They were considered a minor species, barely worth monitoring. But the fleet approaching their sensors suggested something entirely different. "Captain Reyes," Zafira said carefully, "our records show human civilization as having limited spacefaring capability. How do you explain the size and sophistication of your fleet?" There was a pause before Reyes responded, and when she did, there was definitely amusement in her voice. "Commander, when was the last time your people actually visited human space? Not just sent automated probes or monitored from a distance, but actually visited." Vron checked his files. The last manned Valonian mission to human space had been over 50 years ago. Since then, they had relied on long-range sensors and occasional intelligence reports from trading vessels. The humans were considered so unimportant that direct observation wasn't worth the resources. "It's been some time," Zafira admitted. That explains a lot, Rai said. Commander, would you be willing to meet in person? I think we have some catching up to do. 3 hours later, Zafira found herself aboard a human ship that defied everything she thought she knew about their technology. The vessel that had docked with her station was sleek, advanced, and clearly built for long-term space travel. But more surprising than its technology was its purpose. Captain Alina Reyes was a tall woman with graying hair and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. She greeted Zafira in the ship's conference room, which had clearly been designed for diplomatic meetings with alien species. Commander, welcome aboard the New Horizons. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of preparing some refreshments suitable for your species. Zafira accepted the offered drink, noting that the humans had somehow obtained detailed information about Valonian dietary requirements. Captain, I must admit I'm confused. Your ship, this meeting, your knowledge of our biology. It suggests a level of development we weren't aware of. Reyes smiled. Commander, I think the problem is that your people have been looking at humanity through the wrong lens. You've been monitoring our home systems, watching our industrial output, counting our military vessels. But that's not how humans expand. She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from a perspective Zafira had never seen before. Instead of the handful of human worlds the Empire knew about, the display showed hundreds of small points of light, scattered across dozens of star systems. What am I looking at? Zafira asked. Human civilization. Reyes replied simply. We don't build massive cities on a few worlds like most species. We spread out. Small colonies, research stations, mining operations, agricultural settlements. Each one is self-sufficient, each one is connected to the others, and each one is capable of supporting further expansion. Dr. Vron, who had joined them for the meeting, stared at the display in shock. But our sensors, our intelligence reports, show exactly what we wanted them to show, Reyes said gently. Commander, Dr. Vron, humanity learned a long time ago that being underestimated is often an advantage. We've been expanding quietly for decades, not through conquest or grand announcements, but through patient colonization and technological development. Zafira studied the display more carefully. Each point of light represented not just a settlement, but a node in a vast network. The humans hadn't just expanded their territory, they had created an entirely new model of civilization. How many people are we talking about? Current human population across all settlements is approximately 47 billion, Reyes said casually. Our industrial capacity has grown proportionally. What you're seeing approaching your space isn't an invasion fleet, Commander. It's a migration fleet. We're moving about 3 million people and their entire support infrastructure to establish new colonies in the Andromeda approach. The number hit Zafira like a physical blow. 47 billion. The Valonian Empire, one of the major powers in the galaxy, had a population of 30 billion across hundreds of worlds. Humanity had somehow grown to exceed them while remaining virtually invisible. How is this possible? Dr. Vron whispered. Our models, our predictions, were based on the assumption that humans would develop like other species, Reyes explained. Large central governments, massive industrial worlds, traditional military expansion. But humans are different. We're adaptable. When we found out we weren't alone in the galaxy, we didn't try to compete with existing powers. We found our own path. Zafira looked at the holographic display again, beginning to understand. Each human settlement was small enough to avoid attention, but together they formed something unprecedented. You've been preparing for this for decades. Longer, Reyes confirmed. The fleet you detected isn't just ships, Commander. Those are mobile habitats, industrial platforms, agricultural systems, research facilities, and yes, defensive capabilities. We're not just moving people from one place to another. We're moving entire communities, complete with everything they need to thrive in their new homes. The implications were staggering. While the major galactic powers had been focused on traditional forms of expansion and competition, Humanity had been quietly building something entirely new. They hadn't just achieved technological parity. They had revolutionized the very concept of civilization. "What do you want from us?" Saphira asked finally. "Nothing more than we've already requested," Rise replied. "Safe passage through your space to reach the Andromeda approach. We're not interested in conflict, Commander. We're interested in growth, in exploration, in building something new among the stars." As Saphira prepared to return to her station, her mind raced with the implications of what she had learned. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted without anyone noticing. Humanity wasn't just another minor species struggling to reach the stars. They were a major civilization that had chosen to remain hidden until they were ready to reveal themselves. The question now was what the Valonian Empire would do with this knowledge, and how the rest of the galaxy would react when they learned that humanity had been underestimated for far too long. The revelation. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, watching the Valonian diplomatic vessel approach through the viewport. Behind him, the vast expanse of the human migration fleet stretched to the horizon, ships of every size and configuration moving in perfect coordination through the void. In 3 hours, he would be sitting across from High Counselor Thisneleth, the most powerful individual in the Valonian Empire, trying to explain something that challenged every assumption the galaxy had made about humanity. "Admiral, the Valonian delegation ship is requesting docking clearance," reported Communications Officer Torres. "They're also asking permission to conduct detailed scans of our fleet formation." Chen smiled. "Grant both requests. Make sure they get a good look at everything." Engineer Sarah Kim approached from the technical station, her tablet filled with data. "Sir, I've prepared the presentation materials as requested. The Valonians are going to be very surprised when they see what we've actually built out here." "That's the idea, Kim. How are our guest quarters prepared?" "We've modified Deck 7 to accommodate Valonian physiology and dietary requirements. I also took the liberty of including some examples of our more interesting technological innovations. Figure they might appreciate seeing our fusion recycling systems and bioadaptive life support." Chen nodded approvingly. Sarah Kim was one of humanity's most brilliant engineers, responsible for designing many of the systems that made their mobile civilization possible. If anyone could help the Valonians understand what they were seeing, it was her. 2 hours later, Chen found himself in the Prometheus's main conference room, facing a delegation of 5 Valonians led by High Counselor Thisneleth. The High Counselor was an impressive figure, even by Valonian standards, with the silver-tinted skin that marked high rank and the 4 arms that moved with practiced diplomatic precision. "Admiral Chen," Naleth began, her voice carrying the formal tones of galactic diplomacy, "I must confess that your fleet has raised significant questions within our government. Our intelligence services are puzzled by what they're observing." "High Counselor, what exactly are they observing?" Chen asked, genuinely curious about the Valonian perspective. One of Naleth's advisors activated a holographic display showing the human fleet from the Valonian point of view. What Chen saw was a formation that must have looked absolutely massive to outside observers. Hundreds of ships of various sizes, moving in coordinated groups, with energy signatures that suggested incredible industrial and military capability. "We see a fleet of over 800 vessels," Naleth continued, "many of them larger than our heaviest battleships. Energy output suggests massive weapons systems, industrial capacity that rivals our core worlds, and population levels that seem impossible for a species we believe to be confined to a few systems." Chen exchanged a glance with Sarah Kim, who activated her own holographic display. "High Counselor, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about what you're looking at." The new display showed the same fleet, but with detailed breakdowns of each vessel's actual function. What the Valonians had interpreted as battleships were revealed to be agricultural processing ships. What they had seen as weapons platforms were manufacturing centers. What they had assumed were troop transports were actually schools, hospitals, and residential complexes. "High Counselor," Sarah explained. "You're not looking at a military fleet. You're looking at a mobile civilization. These aren't warships preparing for conquest. They're cities, farms, factories, and communities that happen to be moving through space." Nelith's advisor stared at the display in disbelief. "This ship here, with the massive energy signature we classified as a potential planet-killer weapon, that's the UES Garden," Sarah said with a smile. "It's an agricultural vessel that feeds about 200,000 people. The energy signature you're detecting comes from its fusion-powered growing systems. It can turn raw organic matter into enough food to sustain a small city." The Valonian delegation exchanged glances of amazement and concern. Dr. Kethron, whom Chen recognized from the earlier meeting with Commander Voss, leaned forward intently. "But the industrial capacity readings are accurate," Chen confirmed. "High Counselor, humanity approaches space colonization differently than most species. We don't establish a few large colonies and try to support them from home. We create self-sufficient communities that can thrive anywhere. Each of our ships isn't just transportation. It's a complete ecosystem." Sarah activated another display showing the internal structure of one of the larger vessels. The Valonians could see living quarters, manufacturing facilities, hydroponics bays, schools, entertainment areas, and research laboratories, all integrated into a single ship design. "This is the UES New Jakarta," Sarah explained. "Population, 47,000. It has its own government, its own economy, its own culture. It can manufacture everything from computer components to fusion reactors. It grows its own food, processes its own waste, and even has its own university system." High Counselor Nelith was quiet for a long moment, absorbing the implications. "Admiral, are you telling me that your fleet is actually a collection of independent city-states?" "In a way, yes," Chen replied. "But it's more integrated than that. Each ship specializes in certain functions while maintaining basic self-sufficiency. The Garden provides food for dozens of other ships. The UES Forge produces manufactured goods for the entire migration group. The UES Academy trains people who will eventually serve throughout the fleet." Dr. Vron spoke up, his voice filled with scientific curiosity. "But how do you coordinate such a complex system? The logistics alone." "That's where human creativity comes in," Sarah said, clearly enjoying the opportunity to explain. "We don't use traditional hierarchical command structures. Instead, we use what we call adaptive network governance. Each ship maintains autonomy for its internal affairs, but participates in collective decision-making for the fleet as a whole." She showed them a communication network display that looked like a living web of connections between ships. Information flows freely throughout the fleet. When decisions need to be made, the affected communities participate directly. When resources need to be shared, the ships coordinate automatically. When problems arise, the entire fleet can adapt and respond. Nelith studied the display intently. This level of coordination would require incredible technological sophistication. Our intelligence reports suggested human technology was less advanced. Chen laughed. "High Counselor, that's because we've been focusing our technological development on things that matter to us. While other species build massive weapons and compete for territory, we've been perfecting closed-loop life support systems, efficient manufacturing processes, and sustainable energy production." Sarah pulled up another display showing human technological achievements. "We can convert 99.7% of organic waste back into usable materials. Our fusion reactors operate at efficiency levels most species consider theoretical. We've developed bioadaptive environments that can be customized for any species' needs within hours. The ship you're on right now," Chen added, "recycles its air so efficiently that it's actually cleaner than the atmosphere on most inhabited worlds. Our water recycling systems are so advanced that we can sustain populations indefinitely without external resources." The implications were staggering. The Valonians were beginning to understand that they weren't just looking at an advanced fleet. They were looking at an entirely new model of civilization. Humanity had solved the fundamental problems of space colonization, not through brute force or overwhelming technology, but through elegant systems design and social innovation. Admiral, Nalith said carefully, what you're describing suggests a level of development that rivals the oldest galactic civilizations. How long has humanity been capable of this? The first mobile habitat ships were launched about 60 years ago, Chen replied. We've been perfecting the concept ever since. What you're seeing here represents the culmination of decades of gradual improvement and expansion. Dr. Vron was frantically taking notes. But why has our intelligence missed this? How could an entire civilization develop without our knowledge? Because you were looking for the wrong things, Sarah explained gently. Your intelligence services were monitoring military buildups, industrial output on planetary surfaces, and traditional signs of expansion. You weren't looking for distributed networks of small, self-sufficient communities. Chen activated a final display showing the true scope of human expansion. The galaxy map revealed hundreds of small human settlements scattered across dozens of sectors, each one below the threshold that would attract attention from major powers. High Counselor, this migration fleet represents about 8% of human space-based population. We have similar communities throughout the galaxy, all connected, all growing, all working together toward the same goal. Which is? Nalith asked. To build a civilization that can thrive anywhere, that can adapt to any challenge, and that can grow without taking anything away from others, Chen replied. We're not interested in conquest or competition, High Counselor. We're interested in creation. As the meeting concluded, Chen could see the Valonian delegation struggling to process what they had learned. The galaxy's balance of power hadn't just shifted, it had been completely redefined. Humanity hadn't become a major civilization through traditional means. They had become something entirely new. The question now was how the established galactic powers would respond to this revelation, and whether humanity's preference for peaceful expansion would be respected or challenged. But as Chen looked out at his fleet of mobile cities, he felt confident that humanity was ready for whatever came next. They had built something unprecedented among the stars, and they were just getting started.